The invention of writing, from cuneiform to hieroglyphs. Before books, before paper, before alphabets, human history lived only in memory. Stories were told around fire, laws were spoken by leaders, trade agreements were remembered or forgotten, and when memory failed, history disappeared. But around 5,000 years ago, something revolutionary happened. Humans invented writing. Not letters as we know them today, but symbols, marks pressed into clay, pictures carved into stone. And from those marks, civilization changed forever. In Mesopotamia, in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, cities like Uruk were growing rapidly. Trade increased, crops were harvested in large quantities, taxes had to be recorded, storage had to be tracked. Memory was no longer enough. So the Sumerians created a system of symbols. At first, they drew simple pictures to represent goods, grain, animals, tools. These drawings were pressed into soft clay tablets using a reed stylus. Over time, the pictures became simplified into wedge-shaped marks. This system became known as cuneiform. Cuneiform did not start as literature, it started as accounting. But slowly it became something greater. It recorded laws, it recorded stories, it recorded kings, it recorded wars. One of the earliest epic stories in history, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was written in cuneiform. For the first time, thoughts could survive beyond a lifetime. Writing gave power. Scribes became important members of society. They were trained for years. Not everyone could write. Literacy was rare and valuable. Clay tablets were dried in the sun or baked in ovens, making them durable. Thousands of these tablets survive today, telling us about daily life, trade, religion, and government in ancient Mesopotamia. But Mesopotamia was not alone. Far to the southwest, along the Nile River, another great civilization was rising, Egypt. And Egypt developed its own writing system, hieroglyphs. Unlike the wedge-shaped marks of cuneiform, hieroglyphs were detailed picture symbols: birds, eyes, hands, animals, sacred objects. Hieroglyphs were not just writing, they were art. They were carved into temple walls, painted inside tombs, written carefully on papyrus scrolls. They recorded royal achievements, religious ceremonies, stories of gods, the journeys of the dead. Writing in Egypt was sacred. It was believed to be a gift from the god Thoth. Egyptian scribes were respected and powerful. They worked in palaces and temples. They preserved the words of pharaohs. Without hieroglyphs, we would not know the names of ancient kings. We would not understand their beliefs about the afterlife. We would not know their victories or their fears. Writing turned human speech into permanent record. It allowed governments to expand. It allowed empires to manage large territories. It allowed laws to be fixed and enforced. Without writing, there would be no legal systems, no contracts, no recorded history. Writing was more powerful than armies, because armies conquer land, but writing conquers time. Over centuries, writing evolved. Cuneiform spread across Mesopotamia. Hieroglyphs developed into simpler scripts for everyday use. Eventually, alphabets would emerge, systems with fewer symbols, easier to learn. But it all began with clay and stone. The invention of writing marks the true beginning of history. Before writing, we call it prehistory. After writing, history begins, because history needs records, and records need writing. Today,
Every text message, every book, every document traces back to those first symbols pressed into clay and carved into stone. From Uruk's tablets to Egypt's temple walls, humanity found a way to speak to the future, and we are still listening.